I used to love this TV show called Bullshit, which was by Penn and Teller. The concept behind the TV show was that every episode they would look at a culturally popular subject and evaluate it through a skeptical lens. And then they'd point out to viewers why the hype behind the subject wasn't really deserved. In one episode in particular, they had gone into depth on 12-step programs. And after watching that, I came to the conclusion that all 12-step programs were kind of like this recovery cult that lacked any objective scientific validity. And I held that opinion for a really long time, actually almost over a decade, because the show's been out for a while. And then my brother-in-law got into some trouble with alcohol. And he had been in trouble for a really long time, actually. It's just that the trouble got so bad that he had to do something. Eventually, he went to a program, and through that program, he ended up in AA. So just great. Now I've got my own family member who's going to be espousing this, cultish beliefs and, spreading his bullshit. But as long as he didn't drink anymore and kept to himself, honestly, I really didn't care. It wasn't until I hit my own dreaded bottom that my defensiveness dropped about the 12-step programs. After going through a publicly embarrassing arrest, having nearly lost my family and having lost my career, that I finally opened my mind to, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll just give it a shot. My brother-in-law recommended that I try out SLAA, which was at a nearby community center. I could still hear Penn Jillette's voice echoing in my skull, but I decided that if a 12-step program could help my brother-in-law, then maybe I could just park my preconceived notions and just give it an hour. What's the worst that could possibly happen? Now, the particular meeting that I went to was really small. Maybe 15 people were in the room. The age demographic tended towards the middle career professionals, with several retirees and a few in their 20s. The meeting started off with a secretary reading from a guide, and then all members reading excerpts from program literature. Then the floor opened, which was the bulk of the meeting. And from there, anybody could talk. When the share started happening, I knew I had found my place that I belonged. I quickly discovered that I was in a room with people who had similar stories. Now, not all of them got crazy and porn like I did, but I could totally see me doing some of these behaviors that they were talking about, even though the circumstances were different. More importantly, I heard a deep exploration of people addressing their feelings, grappling with their emotions, and working with their sobriety. I would eventually return to this meeting again and tell my story. I felt comfortable doing so because all the people in there take a pledge of anonymity, but they also collectively pour their hearts in every meeting. I mean, you really feel bonded to people that speak openly and honestly. Afterwards, I was only met with love, but also with help. A local real estate executive offered to be my sponsor, and I accepted. Several others gave me their phone numbers, and I called them all. And before I knew it, I almost instantaneously built a great support network. Fellowship with many of these members continued outside of our meetings. We frequently met up for lunch or had morning coffee, and the conversations we had weren't superficial or shallow. They were really deep. I mean, we really discussed our feelings, we talked about our struggles, and we had a really strong reflection on each other's words. Being in a program works on many fronts. It establishes your bottom line behaviors, which in my case wasn't just about porn use. I had to really think about what my cycle was like and understand how utilizing technology as a sexual outlet had a larger scope on more than just porn. When I had my bottom lines established, I could utilize the program to discuss the struggle and reach out to my sponsor and or the people in my network when I was struggling. Talking, just simply talking, is sometimes the best medicine when cravings hit. The people within the 12-step program are some of the best at talking when you have issues, and they've all had similar struggles. There's no need to explain things, they just get it. At its core, the 12 steps are guidance to living a sober life. In many of the S programs, the 12-step recovery process has been augmented by Patrick Carnes, who is the founder of the sex addiction therapy model. And that means that all sponsors will use materials produced in a clinical setting. Each step in turn becomes a deeper reflection of yourself, and by doing this repeatedly, I found that I could reflect on my own behavior patterns more abstractly and better address my mindfulness. The rigidity of the step process and augmentation of Carnes' literature forced me to think in ways that I hadn't thought of before. I doubt seriously that I would have confronted some of the issues that were driving my anxiety had I not gone through the fourth step. And before I get too far off topic, I wanted to also say that the program materials are often quite good as well. The SLA and SAA big books are great reads, and even the Granddaddy AA book is an excellent read. That's right, you don't have to be an alcoholic to really get something out of it. All of the sourced literature will keep readers understanding the nature of addiction and how it goes beyond simple behavior patterns. That the desire to change is central to the recovery process. Having been in the program for some time now, I have sponsored other members. The members I've sponsored exclusively have my issue, pornography addiction. Nothing helps you more than trying to help somebody else. When you've gone down that road and shared those struggles, your advice not only helps out others, it helps keep you present-minded about how real the struggle is. The old expression goes that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Through support and sponsorship, those in the 12-step program are given ample opportunity to never forget the hardships and struggles around addiction and sobriety. It is literally the tool for maintaining mindfulness. I started all this off talking about Penn and Teller's take on the 12-step program. But what I hope I left you with is something a little bit more in depth. The 12-step program can be a fantastic tool in your recovery. It's something that can't be explored at face value. Rather, you have to test drive it as a cognitive tool. The sober person who looks at a 12-step program likely won't understand any of it because it's a practice. You're not going to understand the practice if you don't have the problem in the first place. Should it be to anybody's surprise that Penn Jillette has never had a drink in his life? Now, that's not to say that the process isn't above critique or that it can't be modified. And actually, many programs have been changing with the times. If you visit any particular program, whether it's a S program or whether it's a Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, they tend to localize by the very constituents that inhabit that program. So if you walk into a meeting and you see lots of millennials, chances are things are going to have a millennial vibe. Rules and processes about the meeting will actually curb to the nature of the people that attend. Some old school AA programs lead with the Lord's Prayer, and they're very structured and rigid and resemble something out of 1930s. Well, my meeting is loaded with lots of Gen Xers, so it's a very laid-back atmosphere. And I've had the advantage of living close to two major metro locations, so there's an abundance of meetings to pick from. If you don't like one particular meeting, ditch it and go to another. I want to finish with this. It's a little bit from Carl Jung. And it goes, small and hidden is the door that leads inwards, and the entrance is barred by countless prejudices, mistaken assumptions, and fears. Always one wishes to hear of grand political and economic schemes, the very things that have landed every nation in a morass. Therefore, it sounds grotesque that anyone speaks of hidden doors, dreams, and a world within. What this vapid idealism got to do with gigantic, enormous programs, but the so-called problems of reality? I speak to no nations, only to the individual few, for whom it goes without saying that cultural values do not drop down like manna from heaven, but are created at the hands of individuals. If things go wrong in the world, this is because something is wrong with the individual, because something is wrong with me. Therefore, if I am sensible, I shall put myself right first. For this I need, because outside authority no longer means anything to me, a knowledge of the innermost foundations of my being, in order that I may base myself firmly on the eternal facts of the human psyche. This is Road to Recovery. I hope you got a lot from this. I hope that you can find your own road to recovery, and I encourage you, if possible, to find a 12-step program and utilize that within your recovery process. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, follow, and keep on that path to recovery.